Ian, coming back from a midweek game, how does it affect the way that the rest of the week pans out? If you were to compare it to a week where you've got a free midweek, how does a midweek game away from home, a couple of hours away, then impact the rest of your week's preparation for the weekend's game?
I think that I don't. Do you know what? It's when you play Saturday, Tuesday. The Tuesday is sometimes affected by the Saturday because there's short distance, only a couple of days in between. So you only get Sunday, Monday. But now we have 3 days in between. Normally Tuesday to Saturday isn't too bad. But today, instead of obviously we would normally train Tuesday, Wednesday really hard out on the pitch. Instead, yesterday is like obviously really high intensity for the players. So today we keep most of them in, and we use the medical staff and the physical staff just to recover basically, and then the players that didn't play so much go out and train. So we just try to obviously keep up to speed with the players that haven't played so much, and then the ones that have played, it's all about just recovering. Especially today, mentally recovering. We don't do any video today. We don't go too many meetings. We let the boys come in and try to recharge the batteries. Tomorrow they get off, and then Friday we just come in to sharpen up.
How do you reflect on the game last night? Have you watched it back already now? And how did you? I mean, you gave your initial reactions to us just after full time. Changed at all? And have you seen the handball decision in the lead up to their goal?
Sadly, the camera angle's not amazing. We've Steve's camera was a bit cloudy, to say the least, with condensation, and then we use the other one. The vantage isn't brilliant. Watched some of it back this morning. I think that we start the game really well, and I think the first half is a good performance for us against a strong team. I think second half was pretty much how I saw it, more open, but I think they turned it very open in how much they took risks. But still, I didn't see them really, other than the goal, get any chances. We restricted them to, I think, 2 shots on target. And that's been a bit of a theme, Stockport didn't have a shot on target against us. Grimsby didn't have a shot on target against us. Solihull didn't have a shot on target against us. So I do think that we've really restricted. I say Stockport, they scored the penalty, but I mean in open play before that. So I do think that we've really restricted good teams to very little. I just feel like when we have control of the game, we've got to keep control of the game and then take the next step by finishing a team off. And I do think we've been pegged back a couple of times where I don't feel we should have been, and I think that's the next step for us.
I think it's something, and this stat was accurate of a couple of weeks ago, and it's probably not too dissimilar to it now, but it's like you take the lead in like 80% of games, but obviously you're not winning 80% of
No.
games. So how do you take that next step? And is it sometimes as, believe me, it's not as simple as this,
No.
but sometimes as simple as getting that second goal?
Yeah, it is. I don't think I think we're going in the right direction, and I think football's quite a low-scoring game, and the first goal is quite significant usually. At the moment, we're not quite getting the second and getting pegged back, but I think if we can consistently keep getting ahead in games over the course of a season, it's going to serve us well. So, and I do think in a couple of games we have pegged teams back when we've been behind. Torquay, Wealdstone, we've had games that we've pegged teams back as well. So it's not always been one way, but yeah, I do think we've gone ahead in quite a few. Just now taking the next step to finish the team off is where we need to go.
I think we're like 16, 17 games into the league season now. How would you give it a rating out of 10 for how satisfied you are, or is that not a fair thing to do?
I haven't thought too much. Probably 6. I think above average, but I still think there's a way to go. I wouldn't. I think no one would ever give 10 anyway. And I still think I think we've performed really well in several games, but I just think now finding the consistency, keeping it up for 90 minutes like we have done in some of the bigger games, and that's where we need to be at. So we came off it against Eastleigh. That was disappointing. I thought we picked back up again yesterday. Now we need to take this momentum forwards, and we have 2 home games now, which is very important.
I know this is probably going to be like asking you to pick your favourite kid, but have you got a player of the season so far?
No, not really. I think we have a lot of players that have performed well. And I think that it's been quite a good collective effort. So I think if somebody generally is playing well, so I thought last night Ruben was excellent last night. It's normally a consequence of everybody else also being a part of that. People have to deliver him the ball and people have to defend behind him, and it's rarely one player. But I think we've had several good performers, and I think collectively, we're growing as a team. So I'd say no, not one standout for me. I think there's been plenty that have done well.
Yeah, and it's drawn the attention. We mentioned it briefly after a game at Meadow Lane 10 days ago, or whatever it was. Now it's drawn the attention quite a few scouts, and there are a number of scouts at pretty much every Notts County game at the moment. I just wonder how much that concerns you to an extent. The majority of them seem to be watching the same sort of names keep coming up to me over and over again. It's Ruben, it's Kyle Wootton, it's Joel Taylor, it's maybe Matty Palmer. Then same names keep getting mentioned. Do you worry at all that somebody could come in January and try and take one or more of them away from you?
No, I'd be worried if the scout's not in the stands, because then I think we're doing something wrong. I think that the fact that there's so many and they're coming to Meadow Lane, I think firstly, absolutely the way that we're playing is attracting scouts to come, because I think that scouts from higher leagues can relate more to how we're playing than maybe other teams, which means that they get much stronger reference points. This was something that I said when I came in about the way in which we're going to play is going to develop players to help them go and play further up the leagues. That's what we did, certainly in Östersund, a lot of players, we sold players direct to the Premier League. Because of the way we played, I think the reference points were much closer to what those teams want to see. And I think that it's a good thing. I think that it's motivating for everybody that we are doing the right things, that people are interested in the players, that we're developing them in the right way. And that comes with the territory. We can't be afraid of that. But there are players and they enjoy being at Notts County, and it doesn't concern me. Whilst they're under contract with us, it would take a lot to move them out. So it's part of the game.
It's the nature of the business as well. I guess the business plan that's been put in place by sort of the Reeds brothers and there on down through Richard Montague and yourself as well, that you're signing young footballers to play in this style of football. And I think it's a great point that you make about the fact that it's easy to get reference points when they watch one of these players playing within your team and the way that they're playing. They are, the majority of them, under contract, and so there is an element of protection there. But where there isn't, I guess, is Kyle Wootton, whose contract is up at the end of this season, and we know how important he is to the team.
Yeah, and I think Woods knows how highly myself and the club value him. I think that's been seen by the leadership responsibilities he's got this season at a relatively young age, and he's been extremely valuable since I've come in. It's no secret that he's out of contract at the end of the season, but I'm sure if you ask Kyle, he really enjoys his football at Notts County. He shows from his performance and the way he carries himself every day that he's only focused to be here. And when the time is right, we bring up his future to him. But right now, he just needs to think about playing football, scoring goals, and nothing else really.
Have you not entered into sort of new contract negotiations with him yet then?
Not yet. I mean, he knows that we really want him here. I don't think that's any secret to anybody. But we'll enter them when we feel the moment's right for both parties. At the moment, the biggest and most important thing for him is that he keeps playing good football, and we always say football decides. So he needs to keep delivering, and then we go from there.
Does that, the longer that it takes to try and secure a new contract with him, does that not leave you in a vulnerable position as a football club to either losing him for free next summer or losing him for a reduced fee in January, because you don't want to lose him for free next summer if you follow my meaning?
Yeah, not really. I think we would sell a player in January if we felt that it was in the best interests of the football club, and so that doesn't worry me too much. when we come towards the end of the season, we'll make our position very clear with Kyle. We really like Kyle, and we'd want him to stay. But as a player's contract runs out, ultimately you don't decide that; they decide that themselves. So, but one thing I know is that he really enjoys it here. So there's a lot of football to be played, a lot of time before the end of the season, and many things can happen. So right now, my only focus is the upcoming games. Kyle Wotton's going to be massive for them, and for any player in any contract situation, the best thing that they can do is just focus on doing the job and playing well for the team. And Kyle does that every single day.
So no current plans then to enter negotiations with him until perhaps later on in the season, if not until the summer?
I don't know. We'll talk when the time's right. At the moment, we've had so many games in such a short space of time. Sometimes that can detract away from what you're actually doing, and I don't think we need any of that instability. So I'll know, and Woods and the guys around him will know exactly when the right moment is to bring this to the table. He knows how much we value him, and then we'll go from there. But for me, players need to focus on what is really important every day. And right now, Woods and the rest of the squad as well, despite there being plenty of noise around some players, they just do their job every day, and they're brilliant. And I don't really think they get involved with the noise. The noise is created by everybody else. We're really happy and working well here.
Sam Slocum back in the team over the last couple of games. It meant that, after as a result of Anthony Patterson going back to Sunderland, has there been any further conversations with Sunderland about a potential return for Patterson, or is it a little bit too early for that?
Oh, I just lost you there. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah.
Got me back?
Yeah, you got you back. Yeah.
I was just saying. Yeah,
about Pato. Yeah.
Back in the team. Yeah. Has there been any further dialogue with Sunderland about Anthony Patterson possibly coming back at all?
Yeah, I mean, when he went back, we had that open door. They were really happy with how he developed while he was here, and I think he was happy with the environment, and the way that he was treated here was excellent. So, I think in an ideal world, I don't think Sunderland necessarily wanted to recall him, but because of injuries, that was a necessity. So we all understand that. But as their injury situation changes, we'll go back into that discussion with them. And certainly, I know that they'll be keen for him to get game time and look at the environment. But we always knew that Sam is a top goalkeeper, so I love that competition. And Sam's come in and done well. And now, if it all works out, Pato was to come back, then once again we create great competition in the goalkeeping slots, which is good for everybody, I think.
Just go to January for a moment, and obviously, look, you can sign players anytime in the National League, but obviously January creates movement with the leagues above. Are you looking to be busy at all with January coming around the corner now?
Yeah, I mean, you could see that we've thinned out a little bit with some injuries, and we've had some illness, and then you can see maybe not vulnerabilities, but you can see the gaps where, okay, when I came into this team, we had like 5 or 6 players sat on loan, and the squad was very big, and I didn't feel it was necessarily the healthiest environment, because it was with us not having B team games or 23s games, it can create not the best environment if you have too many, but you need to be ready to move should you need 1 or 2, and I think we've always been in that position. You saw like when Sam went out, we got Pato within a day. And we move very, very wisely in that market. So I think that there can be some movement, but and of course we're always looking to try to get better and create competition. So we'll work with that, and we do have some options, but again, we need to see how the next few games go and what we feel is going to benefit us for the second part of the season.
What about links with the club over the river in Nottingham Forest? I know their under-23s play a lot of the games at Meadow Lane. I know Forest previously were very keen to kind of have that good relationship with the football club, because when they were sending their players out, it was dead easy to keep tracks on them, because they were literally only the other side of the River Trent. Is that an option? Is that a possibility? And I mean, that used to be, it was a really good link between the two clubs, and then it soured, and now it looks like it's built back onto a better footing once more.
I would say we have a good relationship with them. We speak to myself and the club speak with Gary Brazil over there, and we have really good dialogue with him. I know like myself and Doyle speak to Andy Reid a lot with the 23s. In fact, we're going to do a little in-house thing with them next week. Obviously, we don't have a game, so we can get some competition into the training sessions. So I think we're building a good connection between them and a good working thing there. But it's also, I always think with every loan player, you don't just take loan players in for the sake of taking them. You need to actually be able to be a part of their development. Otherwise, doesn't work for us, doesn't work for the club, doesn't work for the player, and then you gain nothing from that connection. So I think they've got some really good players, really interesting players in the 23s. Of course, it would have to be the right moment and situation that they would be able to come in, play, positively affect our game, and then gain a good experience. And I'm sure within the next, whether it could be 6 months or more, that at some point there'll be that connection and we'll be able to find a solution with a player that works for everyone.
Appreciate you chatting to me about all sorts of different subjects. I finally wheel around onto Dagenham and Redbridge.
Yeah.
They shot out the traps early doors this season, scoring loads of goals, were almost runaway leaders at the top of the table for a time, have fallen back since then. What are you expecting out of them at the weekend?
I think they're a good team. I think they have dropped off a little bit, but that can happen. Especially they were so good at the start and scoring so many goals. I saw them against Salford in the FA Cup. I thought they were so unlucky not to win that game. I mean, the goalie in net for Salford was outstanding, and they should have won that game really. I think they're a good team. I think they're very attacking. I think they flood forwards with a lot of numbers, and they play good football. So can be a very open game. I think they've suffered with 1 or 2 injuries of late, but I think that they'll be extremely competitive. They'll be wanting to get themselves out of a bad run. It's on telly, so everybody gets a little lift from that. Of course, people want to come to Meadow Lane, and it's always a big challenge for them. So I expect a really tough game against Dagenham at the weekend.
Some of that stuff seems like it might suit your group, though. The fact that it's on telly, I mean, previously Notts had this reputation of shrinking under cameras and big crowds. It doesn't feel like that's the issue. In fact, it feels like your players rise to occasions. And I think I heard you in the pre-match press before Boreham Wood's game, where you sort of said about your players having bigger games and rising to it, and then Eastleigh wasn't quite that, and so it was more difficult to get motivated. An open game as well might also suit your team. All of that sounds enticing to me. It sounds like it could be a good day at the Lane.
I hope so. I mean, me included, we always like the big. I enjoy the big games. I enjoy a bit more pressure and the TV and big crowd and home games and good team that we play against. The challenge is always going to, if you like, the smaller clubs where we in the middle of a busy schedule like we did, and then you take your foot off. And that's the challenge for us, is to mentally stay absolutely on point where we need to be, regardless of the game. I enjoy the big games, and so do our players. I think we've shown that we've stepped up in them. So, yeah, I really look forward to it this weekend. But like I say, it's going to be against a very good team. So that will be a challenge.
Just finally, because I know I've kept you. Naman's out for a couple of weeks, you said last night.
Yeah.
Rawlinson and Jim O'Brien, though, could they be back for the weekend?
Jim, definitely. He trained yesterday and he's training today now, and looks good. So Jim will be back. Connell, we'll see. He didn't report in today because he's still feeling unwell, but he's feeling better. So if he can come in on Friday, perhaps he's in the squad. Maybe ready to play, but we'll have to check him.